This just in. Reports have been pouring in from residents of several neighborhoods located along the Santa Ana River north of Featherly Regional Park. Distraught citizens are describing eerie, strange, and otherworldly clickety-clack noises as well as the intermittent clanging of bells. Larry Hawkinsmith stated that while passing over the Gypsum Canyon Bridge, he heard what could only be described as giggles.
Norman, just to confirm, did you say giggles?
Giggles.
Wait, Norman. Our Station KYLZ investigation team has confirmed that in the early 1950s there was once a real miniature railroad located in the wilderness area from which recent reports of otherworldly sounds and voices are emanating. According to documents, the location was at one time called Sycamore Camp Park or something similar like Sycamore Flat Park. Thank you for that, LaFondisha. Now continuing with our series on the bizarre early 1950s Santa Ana Canyon Miniature Railroad, here's Norman.
Viewers have been asking station WOKE whatever happened to the kitty-sized train. What we know is that way back in 1946 Philip J. Martin began building the miniature steam-driven locomotive in the garage of his Los Angeles home. Following 4.5 years of painstaking work, it was finished, and Martin and his wife leased property in a wilderness area near current-day Yorba Linda, California, now called Feathery Regional Park. In 1950 the diminutive railway was opened to the public and Martin christened the locomotive the Victory Special. Philip Martin and his wife operated the so-called Santa Ana Canyon Miniature Railroad until his death in early 1952. Over the next 6 years, friends of Martin, who were also railroad enthusiasts, kept the little train running while Mrs. Martin tried to arrange for its sale. Finally, in 1958 ownership was transferred, and that is when the whereabouts of the locomotive and cars becomes uncertain. It was not until 3 decades later, in 1988, that it resurfaced when Tony Ruvolo and his son happened upon it sitting in a vacant dirt lot. Father and son purchased the engine and rolling stock and began the long process of restoring the train, while also giving it a more western frontier look. It took the duo 7 years to complete their work, and in 1995 they rechristened it the El Dorado Express and installed the railroad at its current location in Long Beach, California. Ruvolo operated the train ride until 2018, when El Dorado Park assumed ownership. They continue to run it to this day, and you can still enjoy a ride on the 70-plus-year-old train.
Great investigative report, Norman. I'm certainly going to Long Beach for a ride, ha 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 snort snort. Do we know the exact location within the canyon of the 1950s railway?
Well, Brandy Lou, the exact layout of the track and locations of the station, water tower, switches, and tunnel aptly named Squeeze Ami Quick has not yet been determined by our station WOKE field team. However, using aerial imagery from as far back as 1938 along with current maps and witness statements, we have narrowed down the possible sites to just 2.
Wow, that's some dope goat. Norman, can you explain to viewers how your KYLZ team narrowed down the possible sites?
Thank you, Nova. But it really weren't no thing, but a chicken wing. Our first clue came from one of those outdated labels or notations that mysteriously remain on maps even though the place or feature no longer exists. If you watched our earlier KYLZ broadcast entitled The Search for Lake Matilda, you may remember that Google Maps, when switched to terrain mode, still showed a body of water at the bygone lake site even though it had been drained and replaced by houses more than 3 decades earlier. Well, on 2021 Google Maps there is a label shown as Sycamore Park in an area of the river where there are no sycamore trees, and no park, but only a small orange grove that was acquired by the Orange County Flood Control District way back in 1987. From our research we know that the Santa Ana Canyon Miniature Railroad was indeed located in a place called Sycamore Park. Or Sycamore Picnic Park, or Sycamore Camp, or Sycamore Flats, or something similar. So as we moved forward with our search, we kept this map label constantly in mind. Your KYLZ team used this aerial image dating from 1938 to first determine possible sites based upon the floodplain and the desirability of higher ground. Few viewers will know that for 3 days, February 27, 1938 to March 1, 1938, 14.5 inches of rain fell in parts of Southern California. The resulting flood waters took the lives of 113 people and caused massive property loss. At that time the Santa Ana River was basically wild, as Prado Dam would not be built for another 3 years, with other projects including the 1999 Seven Oaks Dam still far in the future. This aerial image was taken after the flood, and we detected 2 prominent land areas in our search window that were high enough to remain dry. We added to these the area labeled Sycamore Park for our list of sites. KYLZ investigators then superimposed an aerial image from 1953, a year in which the miniature railroad was operating. Although the image lacked sufficient resolution to clearly identify the running track, or the locomotive and cars, it did help us eliminate one of our considered sites. The easternmost of the 3 locations is shown to have been cleared of trees and fully cultivated, making it no longer a possibility. Statements made by our senior community members that in their youth visited the park all indicated the railroad to have been located north of the Santa Ana Canyon Expressway, also referred to back then as State Road 18, and south of the river. Because our mysterious map label that read Sycamore Park appears on the map to be slightly north of the Wandering River and mostly in croplands, we decided to reorient it a few hundred yards southeast in the assumption that its 2021 placement was slightly off. Aerial imagery from 1960 contained much more terrain detail, so we introduced this into our search. Although the locomotive cars and track reportedly had been removed 2 years earlier in 1958, we thought there might be remaining structures and features visible in the photos that would help us determine the railway's exact location. When superimposing aerial images taken years or decades apart, we look closely for anchors. Anchors are natural features or man-made features that have survived over time and appear in all the photos being employed. These anchors allow us to align and scale each image so that when placed one on top the others, everything is aligned. Here you see we have identified a prominent and distinctively shaped hill as well as several oak tree groves. The area of our investigation has experienced massive earth movements due to construction of the 91 freeway and the 241 tollway, as well as the mining of gypsum and flood control projects including river channelization. The hill and oak groves provided some of the few remaining features that allowed us to anchor the aerial images. Individuals that visited the railroad back in the 1950s stated they remembered there being a nearby horse rental business. The oval-shaped feature shown here has the dimensions and form common to corrals and riding arenas. Visitors also stated they entered the park from the south along the Canyon Expressway. Here we see one of the very few access points meeting such description along this section of the Santa Ana Canyon. Also visible in the 1960 image are two very distinctively shaped structures. The one taking the form of a long rectangle could very well be the train's protective shelter. Shown here in a photograph from Popular Science magazine. Published in 1953, the article provided many details describing the miniature railroad that helped your KYLZ investigative reporters to narrow our search. We also know that after leasing the land for their miniature railroad, Philip and his wife Mary had a prefabricated house brought to the location and positioned on a slight rise. When magnified on this photo, you can clearly see a man-made structure that is of similar size and similar shape to homes of that period. Also, the home's close proximity to the train's protective cover supports our theory, as Philip was known to keep close watch over his prized locomotive and running stock. Our last photographic point of interest is a place at which we believe Midway Station may have been. It is located along the river in an area from which there is easy access to the water for fishing, wading, tubing, and picnicking. As you will now also see, it is also in such a position that would indeed place it approximately halfway around our wild-assed hypothesis of where the 1.09-mile loop would be from the best possible location for a boarding platform. Lastly, we will now keep our added labeling while transitioning the background to an exactly scaled and positioned 2021 map of the area studied. By doing this, you, our KYLZ viewers, can study the imagery and decide if you agree with our unconfirmed, but evidence-based belief of where Martin Santa Ana Canyon Miniature Railroad delighted so many kids and adults so long ago. If you have any information that would help confirm our educated guess, or provide the basis for justifying an investigation of an alternate location, please leave a note in the comments section below. This is Norman Doorman saying for all our KYLZ team, good night and live graciously.